you, Mr. Chair. A couple follow-up questions for Ms. Giovanoli before I ask about post-release services. So let's, put a pin in that. I'll come back to that in a minute here. But wanted to afford you an opportunity to further respond to a couple of issues that have come up previously by some of my colleagues. Number one, the value and importance of access to counsel for unaccompanied children, number one. Number two, anything further to add on this? As we recognize an unwillingness or a reluctance sometimes on the part of a parent or a sponsor to engage in this process, generally, but also what that means for the accuracy and value of underlying data as a result. I mean, the one example you kept pointing to is like, just because the first call doesn't get answered doesn't mean that a second or third call may not. There's a lot more to it than that. And third, just from a governance and oversight standpoint, the distinction between an ombuds person and an inspector general. Pluses and minuses and the value of an ombuds office as no longer exists. I know those are three big ones before I get to my post-release services question. In any particular order.
Those are three big ones. Let me work backwards. The Ombuds Office still has staff. We have a deputy, but it has been seriously curtailed by the HHS administration, and it is not allowed to do the kind of oversight, the kind of visits, the kind of investigations that we had envisioned. I think that's critical. Anyone that is calling on, more investigation into when things go wrong should recognize that accountability starts at that basic level of an ombuds office that can pick up the questions when they first come up, whatever they are. And in fact, even though I was in the Trump administration for the first month at least, not once was I ever invited or asked to participate in any of the meetings that were taking place about the new vetting or any of these other programs. So I have no idea what was actually going on in that room, but it wasn't transparent.
And part of the interruption here, but does the apparent change in mission or priority combined with a reduction in resource help or hurt the cause of addressing the concern of unaccompanied children?
Oh, it hurts it, of course. Of course. You asked me several questions, and I got so riled up on that last one that I've now forgotten.
Access to counsel, importance, value of access to counsel, or reduced access to counsel for unaccompanied children.
Well, I think that one of the unfortunate things about the discussion so far today has been that we have focused so much on the very tragic situations, which should never happen. No child should be subject to this kind of harm and abuse ever. But we neglect to mention that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of children who have become thriving, successful young adults because they were given the opportunity to be protected in the United States. I used to work at Kids in Need of Defense, a legal services organization that represented thousands of children over the years who are now contributing to the United States in wonderful ways. And that in and of itself should identify the importance of having representation. As Senator Hirono says, there is a higher likelihood that a child will receive some type of protection in the United States because there is an attorney. And that's because immigration law is so incredibly complicated. And asylum and trafficking protections and all the different kinds of things that a child might be eligible for are extremely complex, difficult things to do that a child on their own simply can't. They don't know the legal standard, let alone have the probably the developmental ability to be able to articulate everything that's happened to them without guidance.
Thank you. And the third was the any further comment on the willingness versus reluctance of a parent or a sponsor to field a phone call or otherwise?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It is. There's no question that The more that ICE becomes the face of child protection in the United States, the more it is that parents and sponsors are going to be reluctant to participate. And I should note that the Inspector General's report that listed the 291,000 NTAs that ICE did not issue, it was not a report that was talking about HHS. It was talking about ICE failures to communicate with HHS. It was talking about ICE failures to not follow up, even though the Biden administration's legal advisor for ICE had set up a protocol for looking for children, say, who had not appeared in court. So there are many, as I used to tell my staff, there's never two sides to a story. There's 5 or 6 or 7, and I'm afraid that we've really only seen maybe 1.5 sides today.
Okay. Thank you for that. And now finally, my post-release services question. I do have additional ones. I'm mindful of the time of day. I can submit some for questions for the record. But on this point, which I think is important to cover today, before an unaccompanied child is placed with a sponsor, the Office of Refugees Resettlement, ORR, must at a minimum determine that the sponsor is, quote, capable of providing for the child's physical and mental well-being.
Yes.
Once placed, ORR's post-release services can be crucial in ensuring the well-being of unaccompanied children as they integrate into communities. So my question is, in an ideal world, should all children receive post-release services? And how do these services work in conjunction with the vetting that happened prior to the placement to protect children from exploitation or trafficking?
Yes, in an ideal world, they should receive those kinds of services. Post-release services provide opportunities to help with adjustment to the community. So enrolling in school, identifying mental or physical health issues that may not have been apparent or developed after the fact. Many of these children, as everyone has said, have suffered some serious trauma. Some of them are victims of trafficking. Some of those things do not emerge in the time that they're in custody. It's only when they meet with someone that they trust that they start to tell their real stories.
Thank you.
The grand jury report that Senator Moody was referring to, dated March the 30th, 2023, will be made part of the record without objection. So the record will stay open for 1 week for members to submit additional questions, so you may be hearing from members of the committee, and we'd appreciate your attention to those and prompt response if you do get those. And with that, thank you for being here.
Mr. Chair, if I may, for
Sure.
closing, just a few thoughts and remarks. First, would move to enter into a number of statements into the record, including a statement from Kids in Need of Defense, a statement from the Acacia Center for Justice, a statement from the American Pediatric Association, and a statement from the American Psychological Association of Services. And I just want to thank the witnesses for your time and your participation today. I think we should all agree that we want to ensure the safety and well-being of unaccompanied children just as a human concern, while we struggle to modernize our immigration system as a whole. It saddens me that we have not made the progress in the last 8 months, the last 4 years, et cetera, that we should have. But we have an obligation to put aside some political theater and conduct true oversight of the disturbing allegations sent to us by whistleblowers. Not just to look back to the prior administration, let's look at what's happening as we speak. We have an obligation, therefore, to also ask the Trump administration tough questions and demand transparency. We need to do more to ensure that children are not needlessly separated from their parents. We need to do better to account for parents or sponsors' sometimes reluctance or fear of participating in the process in a dynamic that Senator Durbin articulated. I do believe it is possible. In fact, it's imperative that we balance being protective without keeping kids in custody for overly extended periods of time, which does tend to cause them harm as well. It's a delicate balance, but a necessary balance. And at the very least, we need to make sure that these children have access to the services and the support that they need, including access to counsel, as Senator Hirono has championed, along with the post-release services that we just discussed, all in an effort to keep them safe, even when they are released to vetted sponsors. After all, these are children. They are minors, in some cases preschoolers, not unlike those being portrayed in the chart behind me, that the administration is currently forcing to go into immigration court alone. So, Mr. Chair, I again ask that you join me in calling for that accountability. We are the Committee of Jurisdiction, so let's hold an oversight hearing. Let's go to one of these shelters and see what's really happening to children currently and what conditions they're being held on today. And last, a comment, a response to a comment that I heard earlier about the worst among us. As you've heard me say repeatedly, Mr. Chairman, all year long, if this administration was truly only targeting the quote-unquote worst among us, the dangerous, violent criminals that they like to talk about so very often, there would be no debate, there would be no discussion. But ICE's data, the Department of Homeland Security's data, has shown what we have believed all along. The vast majority of people being detained, being arrested, many being deported even without due process, are not the dangerous, violent criminals, the convicted criminals that they speak of. There are people who happen to be undocumented for a number of reasons. Maybe they were here initially lawfully because of TPS, and that has been taken away from them by this president. Maybe they came initially lawfully on a visa of some sort and have overstayed that visa. That doesn't mean that they came here unlawfully, but they now find themselves in that category. And yes, some that did come unlawfully but have no criminal convictions on their record, but many work in industries that our federal government deems essential, whether it's in construction, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in hospitality or healthcare or otherwise. They deserve better than to live in fear of deportation. They are not the dangerous, violent criminals that this administration likes to talk about. That is the reality of the times that we're living in. We can and must do better, and this is the Committee of Jurisdiction. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, to tackle these problems with serious, constructive engagement, and I thank you for the hearing today.